All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me? You should be able to type in a question or something like that to let me know that you can hear me. Yes. All right. Perfect. Okay. We'll just give it another minute and then we'll get started. All right. Hey, guys. A lot of names here that I haven't spoken to in a while. Thanks for logging on. Yeah, it's pretty nice, right? Neil just mentioned the sunset going on behind me. Can you believe that's in London? Hey, who knew? Okay, cool. Right, let me just make sure it's recording because that would be a bummer. Right, all right, it is recording. Everything's working. Okay, cool. Let's get started. So, thanks everyone for joining. I'm just gonna look down this list. Wow, we're almost full. That's going to be fun for anyone who's more than 2 minutes late. The whole webinar is almost full. Okay, cool. So everyone, the reason for this emergency webinar is something that I've been trying to digest since October. And that is the war that seems to be going on in the minds of Wall Street regards to the position of Bitcoin and the position of gold. What's frustrating and by the way, I have shared these thoughts that I'm about to share with you with everyone that I know, including David Morgan, who is, of course, a part of our Gold and Silver Life Accelerator program. And I think that this is very important to communicate because, as I've always said, we're here to make money, not sell gold. And so I think it's very important for anyone who's been a part of this program, whether you joined a year ago, or whether you joined last week, or whether you joined, in 2010 when we first started. I think it's important for me to share this information so you can make the right decision. And the reason why I wanted to have a special webinar for this is because a lot of people emailed back saying they're 90% in precious metals because they saw a video on YouTube, right? So those are really the people that this webinar is for. If your portfolio is balanced, this is going to be interesting, but it's not going to be that urgent. This is very urgent for those people who have got 80, 90% of their wealth in precious metals for whatever reason, okay? So that's who I want to talk to. So the world that we are moving towards, especially in this COVID environment, has moved and accelerated the world towards a cashless digital world. It's just as simple as that. I was listening to Kevin O'Leary talk about some of his portfolio companies and the planned adoption of e-commerce sales that they had over a 36-month period. That investment had to happen in 5 months, right, during this period. So, and we're not going back. That's a fallacy. We're not going back. That's over with. So, having had that happen, and then understanding when the IMF announced that they want a Bretton Woods renegotiation, that clicked for me because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? I'm not one of those people that was saying, oh my God, they want to trap people, they want to keep, it just doesn't make any sense. All of that stuff, fair in mind, there's a lot of emotion around it. I'm not one of those people. I have a lot of friends that are those people. So I've heard every single conspiracy theory that has come about, and none of it made sense to me until the IMF said, we're going to use this opportunity to renegotiate the Bretton Woods agreement. That makes complete sense. That makes you understand why the entire world is locked down for a virus that has a 99.9% survival rate, right? Because where the world is moving towards is a form of central bank digital currencies, and we have to move the world on. Now, saying that, the goal of a central bank digital currency is so that they can have much more impact on inflation. because with a central bank digital currency, I no longer need to borrow the money. Right now, money is created through debt. I no longer need to do that as a central bank. I can just press a button and airdrop pounds or dollars or euros into people's bank accounts, right? And there is no debt associated with that. So now I can just literally play the modern monetary theory game without having any, any restrictions on it, right? So if, for example, this is what I believe where we're going to, and this all ties in well as to this debate of fragmenting gold and Bitcoin. Where we're going to is at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, we will move towards a central bank digital currency structure. You will be told that your bank account has collapsed, but not to worry, because the central bank is stepping in, and all you got to do is download the Bank of England or the US Federal Reserve digital wallet on your iPhone, put in your details of all your bank accounts, and all of your money will be put into that one account for you. The benefit of this is no one's going to lose any money, right? The disadvantage of this is that now, in order to get the goals of inflation, they can now manipulate people on an individual basis. It's almost like having a Facebook account, right? They can see everything you're doing. Well, with a digital wallet, they can also see everything you're doing. So if my spending habits don't create inflation because I save too much money, for example, they can hit me with a negative interest rate. But if your, say, account, you spend too much money, they can hit you with a positive interest rate to motivate you to save more money. And that can happen via an algorithm 24/7, right? So I can have an interest rate for the next month, and you can have an interest rate for the next month, and they can see whether our spending habits change. So they can now do behavioral technology on money. So that's where I think that's where the world is going. And if you think that's a conspiracy, this is all actually going into law in places. So the US has legislation on, mentioning a Fed wallet, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that's actually happening. And the coronavirus situation, the reason why you're hearing this term "build back better" from every politician in the world, and we're going to have a great reset and all this other stuff. Everyone thinks that's, they want to, stop plane travel. Look, guys, okay. Yeah, the Green New Deal in its form that it's marketed sounds like a bunch of crock shit to me as well. But that's not the goal. The goal is the monetary reorganization of the entire world. You conspiracy theorists need to think a little bit bigger as to what's actually going on. When this move happens, it's going to unlock the taps of how much money they can borrow. You will never have another conversation of, the US is in this much debt. China's in this much debt. This is how much debt to GDP. All of that will go away because that won't matter anymore. It's just a case of how much money is printed. So as that happens, inflation will now come into focus, which is why the Federal Reserve has already made the announcement that we are going, rather than aiming for 2%, we're going for 2% over a period of time. So that means for the next 3 years, if we're at, if we've been at 1% for the last 5 years, well, the next 3 years we can ride at 3%. So when you say that, the argument for smart people is, how do I protect the value of my money? Because clearly the value of the money is going further and further into the ground. Well, the historical answer for that has been gold, right? And stocks and things like that, but mainly gold. The problem is that the argument for gold, see, everything I've said should make you go, but the argument for gold is a lot stronger. And it is. The argument for gold actually got stronger. The problem is that Wall Street has been leaning towards the Bitcoin side since October. And so what they've been saying, and they've been following the narrative of Bitcoin is gold 2.0. I agree. And here's what's crazy. You guys know I was a Bitcoin hater, but the fact that I've managed to change my mind and then accelerate, I allocated $1 million to Bitcoin within the first 45 days of the light switch going on, right? And that was my first investment. So it's interesting to see how fast this learning curve is taking, because it doesn't take long at all. And it's also interesting to see the fact that Wall Street is pushing it. If I was to read out a list to you, In fact, let me see if I can just share it. Wait a second. Right. Should be able to see that, right? So if I can, right now, these are all the financial institutions that recognize Bitcoin as gold 2.0. It's going to blow your mind, right? You got Fidelity. Fidelity is one of the longest running ones that have been promoting cryptocurrencies, right? And particularly Bitcoin. JP Morgan. JP Morgan's gone from Jamie Dimon saying, if I find any of my traders owning Bitcoin, I'm going to fire them, to Bitcoin's value is going to go to 60,000. Oh no, we were wrong. It's going to go to 150,000. You got Bloomberg, right? Bloomberg's promoting this. You got Deutsche Bank. You got Citibank. Citibank put out a report saying that they think Bitcoin is going to go to $318,000 a coin. I'm going to try and see if I can find that article for you later. So $318,000 per coin by the end of December 2021, right? You got Jefferies, BlackRock. Freaking BlackRock, you know, as I say, you got the CIO and the CEO. I'll play a video for you in a second. The CEO talking about how if Bitcoin, takes its place, it could have no more need for the US dollar, right? And you got all, Paul Tudor Jones, Stanley Druckenmiller just got involved. It is blowing up in Wall Street. And here's the reason, right? A lot of people think, by the way, that Minesh is a contrarian. Hey, Minesh got the fact that we were in a V-shaped recovery and no one else got it because Minesh is a contrarian. That's bullshit. I'm not a contrarian. I just follow the money. That's the least contrarian thing that you can do. The people that are going on about the world collapsing are the people who are not following the money, and are the people who are trying to wish the world in the direction that they wanted to go in. The reason why I was right and I wasn't more cocky about it is because I had to let it unfold, basically. So this is not me making stuff up, right? This is actually happening in the world as we speak. And I'll show you a chart that really got me thinking about this. There we go. Right. So they started talking about it in October. And this is the discrepancy of the gold and versus the Bitcoin price. And look where they separate in October, right? This is when Wall Street started getting involved and Wall Street started pumping the idea that Bitcoin is gold 2.0. Paul Tudor Jones said it's the fastest horse in the race, et cetera, et cetera. From that moment, Bitcoin started taking off and gold had started selling off. Right? This is not theory, right? This is actually happening. And the people that are still promoting gold without a Bitcoin allocation are, I don't know. I mean, personally, I think they're losing the plot a little bit, because you can so easily see, what's going on. And on top of that, if you don't believe that, well, this is right? This is a chart of showing the inflows and outflows into gold, right? And we've had the single biggest fund outflow from gold ever this year, right? So this is the reality of what's going on. My job isn't to make stuff up and will the world in the direction that I want it to go in. My job is to look at what the funds are saying, what the money is saying, and then take action into there, right? And also, I'll show you this chart too. This is the global fund flows into equities. So what will happen is that it's not just going to be Bitcoin. It's the stock market and equities, which is why I've been saying that Stock Profits for Life and that accelerator are going to be the most profitable one. So they've had the largest rolling 2-week period of fund flows into global equities ever, at the same time as we've had the largest outflow from gold. So this is scary. No matter who you are, if you are a gold investor and you're owning gold, this is scary. And what's annoying about it is that the argument for gold, which is the first part of what I laid out, the argument for gold got better. The argument for gold this year got better. You've got inflation. You've got 20% of all the US dollars that have ever been printed have been printed in 2020. That's freaking crazy when you think about it, right? You've got all the way around the world, they're going to be printing more money. You've got Congress working on another $1 trillion spending plan right now in the US. You've got the UK just borrowed 300 billion pounds. So there is so much going on in the world that should actually promote the investment in gold. And the argument is solid. You need gold, right? However, with Wall Street causing this sort of, fragmentation, which is the best word I can find for it, it's harming the price of gold. And this is why you've seen the price of gold slam down to the 200-day moving average, right? And if this continues, you got to remember, gold it's a 10 to 12 trillion dollar market, right? It's a 10 to 12 trillion dollar market. And how market cap works, it's like this. If $1 trillion wants to come out of gold over a 4-year period, it's fine, because in that period, more and more new demand will come in and it will suck up that supply and the price will steadily come down. What happens is, if because of Wall Street, suddenly $1 trillion wants to come out in 6 months, well, that's what you get. Well, that's what we're seeing. All this money is trying to fly out of gold. And so the price is coming down rapidly, and the market cap overall will be hit by $2 to $4 trillion, right? Because of the sudden increase in available supply waiting to sell gold and the disappearance of buying power. This is why this is so concerning. And it's why I think everyone needs to pay attention to it. So let me just bring up the gold chart here, and I'll show you, what I think may happen, because I think it's going to be a tough period. Right. Okay. So here, what we can see that's happened is that the gold price has come down to the 200-day moving average right here. Last time we were here in March, it came down, it bounced up, and that was great. It was great support. What I think is going to happen, if this continues, is that this gold price, if the outflows continue, I think this gold price has a chance of coming down to the 200-week moving average, which is down here, which is the 1440 level right now. It was the 1355 level. It's 1440 level right now on gold. And if we're looking at GLD, we're looking at 136, right? Gold had a fantastic job. Look at that. Gold did a fantastic job living up to its name, which is the inflation hedge, until all of Wall Street started talking about gold and started talking about Bitcoin rather, and why Bitcoin is gold 2.0. So you might be wondering, hey, this is crazy. Why is everyone going into Bitcoin? Because it's not gold. It's an imaginary thing. That's not the point. We as humans throughout history have given value in terms of a store of value to the thing that has the highest stock to flow ratio. It's how we value gold, right? It's how we value silver, through stock to flow. Stock to flow is basically the measure of how fast the new flow coming out of the ground can replace all the on earth supply of a particular asset, in this case, gold. So typically gold, no matter how much money you throw into the gold space, if you want to throw $7 trillion tomorrow into it, it's still going to take 56 to 62 years to replace all of the gold that is on Earth right now. It's still going to take that time. With Bitcoin, in this halving that just happened, the difference with Bitcoin and gold is that nobody can tell me on Earth how much gold was dug up exactly yesterday. With Bitcoin, I can tell you that. And so as Bitcoin's production schedule starts, being controlled more and more now, it's now going to become, quote unquote, the hardest asset on earth. That is what actually gives something value. Gold doesn't have any value if it's not hard. Just look at silver, right? It's why I started turning away from silver a few months ago, and why I did that urgent webinar back then. Because what I realized was that, as per the Silver Institute, at the closer the silver price gets to $50 an ounce, the stock to flow ratio goes down to 3 years, which means within 3 years, I can replace all of the above ground supply of silver at the right price. And by the way, on gold, we don't know when that's going to happen. So I don't think gold's got anything to worry about until $20,000 an ounce. But at $20,000 an ounce, does it suddenly become profitable to dig gold up out of the ocean? I don't know, right? That's another frontier for gold to worry about in the future. But at this point, we don't need to worry about that. However, what we do need to worry about is that in 2024, when the next Bitcoin halving happens, it is now the hardest asset on earth, right? It will take, I think, 100 years to replace all the Bitcoin based on the mining structure. And a lot of people that promote gold don't understand that the scarcity is what gives it the value. It's not the fact that you can use it for jewelry, right? That's not what gives gold value. It's the scarcity element of it. That's what makes it a store of value. And Bitcoin's going to surpass that in the next 4 years. The argument was that, sure, if Bitcoin surpasses that, that's fine, but institutions and hedge funds and things like that are still going to want gold. But that's the mindset that I was in as well, because which institution is going to want to go and put all their money into Bitcoin, right? They're going to want gold. Their treasuries are proven, right? How stupid, because earlier this year, a company called MicroStrategy came out and they put $500 million, or rather $425 million of their $500 million treasury into Bitcoin. And within 3 months, the value of their treasury in Bitcoin went up more than 3 years of their business profits. So companies are going to jump onto this now, right? And the more of, hold on. Is it? All right. The more of these guys that say, yeah, Bitcoin is gold 2.0, the more comfortable publicly listed companies are going to get in putting their money into them. And the more comfortable hedge funds are going to get, and the more comfortable that family offices are going to get, because all these guys are saying is, yeah, this is here to stay. This is gold 2.0. So I want to play you a video of Larry Fink. I don't know if anyone has heard of Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, biggest fund manager in the world, talking. And by the way, he's on a call combined with Mark Carney, who is the previous governor of the Bank of England. And so a news reporter asked him about Bitcoin. Now, you think I'm talking about gold. Well, let's have a look at what Lawrence is saying, and I'll stop in between. I'll stop in between so we can, hold on. I've got to make sure you guys can hear the sound. Right.
To Bitcoin.
Can you guys hear that sound? Just let me know. It's the first time I've done that on Zoom. Can you guys hear this?
One of my important investors was on one of the television shows.
Just let me know if you can. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Cool. Right. Let's roll with this, and I'm gonna stop and talk through it as well.
Last few
that will come from that will be quite substantial. So
transparency. There's no question.
Hold on, guys. Sorry.
Ultimately, consumers.
I would just start off and say digital currency is a mechanism to bring down costs quite considerably, and just like companies that do very well because they provide great convenience and price transparency, there's no question digital currency provides that convenience, that simplicity. So there's a great need to create it. On the other hand, it needs to be organized.
What he's talking about there is the entire worldwide foreign exchange market, right? That's what he's talking about. Because when you have a digital currency that doesn't need conversion from one to the other, you get rid of the hundreds of billions a day worth of revenue for all these foreign exchange markets.
It needs to be governed. It needs to be a component of governmental policy worldwide. And now related to Bitcoin, one of my important investors was on one of the television shows the last few days, and he spoke about Bitcoin and two of, one, monetary policy, two, and three, COVID. The hits on BlackRock's on our website was 3,000 on COVID, 3,000.
Let's understand this. The CEO of BlackRock is reciting to you the hits on his website regarding Bitcoin. If you don't think that these guys think that this is important, why would the frickin' CEO of BlackRock know the website hits he's getting?
Hits on a monetary policy and 600,000 hits on Bitcoin. So what that tells you is Bitcoin has caught the attention and the imagination of many people.
This guy knows how many people landed on his website. Yet I don't think he's the one going in checking his analytics, right? I think he's got people and he's asked them, make sure you bloody well tell me how many people are interested in Bitcoin. And by the way, look at Mark Carney's body language while Larry Fink is talking about Bitcoin.
Many people are fascinated about it. Many people are excited about it, but it's still untested. It's still a pretty small market relative to other markets. It can be, we see these big giant movements every day. It's a thin market. And so can it evolve into a global market? Possibly.
This is coming from the people that said, he just said, yeah, can it evolve into a worldwide market? Yeah, possibly. A few years ago, this is for drug dealers, this is for illegal people, this is for et cetera, et cetera. The tone has changed completely.
Certainly by evidence of the imagination of so many who want to learn about it or interested in about it, to me is a very telling sign. Another good example why understanding big data, like how many hits and all that, really is a defining statement. And so
he just told you that his thought process is impacted by the number of people that land on his website, because that's how they monitor what investments are going to work for the future. That's exactly what he just said. I cannot believe he's just saying this openly and no one's paying attention to it. And by the way, look at Mark Carney's face as an ex-central banker.
Is real, but it's still untested. It still has many. We have to go through many markets to see if it's going to be permanently real or it's going to be a variant of that sometime in the future. Lastly, because we're running out of time, I would just say, having a digital currency has real impact on the US dollar.
And there it is. He's not even talking about gold. He's talking about Bitcoin competing with the US dollar. Now listen, this is the bit where you got to pay attention.
Because having a digital currency makes the need for the US dollar to be less relevant.
When did you ever expect to hear somebody in that position say that the US dollar is at threat? And just look at Mark Carney's face, because Mark Carney's one of the guys, right? He's one of the boys in the central bank club.
The US, and I'm not talking about for Americans, I'm talking about for international holders of dollar-based assets. The question I would raise, and maybe another time Mark and I could talk about it, does it change the need for dollar reserve as a reserve currency? If there was
He has just said that if this works, the US dollar as a reserve currency at its very core will be threatened, right? I cannot believe that these guys are saying it this openly and no one's paying attention.
True digital currency that was separated from dollar-based assets and other things like that. So many questions need to be answered before I could say, is it real and alive? But it certainly has created a lot of imagination, a lot of interest, and it certainly has the potential to evolving into something real.
Right, there you go. So the CEO of BlackRock, along with the CIO as well, has just told everyone in the world that Bitcoin can be a real thing. It needs a little bit more testing, but it can be a real thing. So this comes back around to those people that have got, more than 20% in gold. This is a threat that nobody saw coming. I didn't even see this coming 6 months ago, right? This is a serious threat to the price of gold. And, the frustrating thing about this is that it's annoying because it's not even taking away from the argument for gold. That's what's pissing me off about it, right? The actual argument for gold stays the same, but the fragmentation of attention kills the price of gold potentially. So this level, the 200-day moving average, is very important to watch. Otherwise, I think we're coming down to the 200-week moving average. And by the way, gold was sort of playing around there from 2018 until mid-19. And as far as silver goes, we can have a look at SLV as well. SLV, I told you guys months ago, I think silver is pretty much cooked. I don't think, it had a great gain and that was fantastic from the bottom. But I think that silver, SLV is going to have its day. I think in essence, what's going to happen in the next 15 to 20 years is that Bitcoin, if it continues to work and get harder and harder as an asset, becomes gold, and gold sort of becomes like silver in a weird way, right? So I think that's what is on the cards for this. And what I would highly recommend for anyone who has too much of their assets in gold and in silver is you have to start rebalancing. You're still in an environment of a lot of profit. You have to start rebalancing. I think it's very important. Of course, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but if that was my portfolio, I would seriously start thinking about rebalancing. And just to show you, Bloomberg, again, that Wall Street questioning the future of gold. And everyone's going to say, oh, Wall Street's wrong. Wall Street's evil. Wall Street's where the freaking money's at, right? That's what we've got to look at. I don't care what any YouTuber, any newsletter writer, any stage speaker, all of my friends, I don't care what they say. The fund flows agree with what I'm telling you. And that is what matters. The fund flows agree with what I am showing you here. We've had the biggest drawdown in gold in history, right? And we've seen the divergence in the price of Bitcoin and gold. It is very important to pay attention to this if you've got more than 20% of your assets in gold. And here's Citibank again. They put their analysis at $300,000 by December 2021, right? This hasn't got the chart that they put on there. That's fine. JP Morgan, right? There we go. Now the bank's analysts say the value could triple and challenge gold. The Wall Street push is happening, and that alone could kill the price of gold. It's very important to pay attention to this. Now, I want to, see if anyone's got any questions. That's really what I wanted to share with you. Let's, if anyone's got any questions about what you should be doing. By the way, this is why the people on the SPFL Accelerator are making a ton of money this year. Because not only have we got the COVID thing, but because it's the stock market, we can now take advantage of companies that are investing in Bitcoin and ride this wave up as well with Top Gun trades. So that's why that's been doing really well. So if anyone wants to actually have a conversation, then try and see. I guess you should be able. There should be a sign saying, "I'm," like raising your hand or something like that. If you want to have a conversation rather than just me reading out questions, then we can do that too. Find that button, and until then, I'm going to answer some of these questions. Right? Andrew said, "All these banks have helped create the current situation. They're not likely to be part of the solution." I actually disagree with that. I don't think the banks, the only reason you would move towards a central bank digital currency is if the banks actually did a shit job. for the intention of the central bank. And so the central bank might have bailed these banks out, but I think that's more of a simple-minded way of looking at it, if in a respectful way. I think that the banks have actually done a good job at allocating the capital under the rules that they were given, but inflation is only created when we give money to people that spend it on Gucci belts, right? And on holidays. Inflation doesn't get created if you give it to me and I put it into assets, which is what the banks have been doing, because they've got rules and regulations to follow. So they cannot just go out and give money to everyone, because then their profit margins and their responsibilities will get looked at and brought up. Whereas a central bank can introduce a digital wallet and just print money and give it to anyone and everyone and see who helps affect inflation. So I think the blaming the banks thing is a little bit overdone. And I know I'm going to sound unpopular in a gold crowd for saying that, but I'm using my brain. Robert said, would shorting GLD be a good idea? I'm never a shorter or anything like that. So I can't comment on that. What about silver? So I've answered that already. Okay, just bear with me. I'm just getting through the yeses and the nos. All right, we got a couple hands raised here. All right. Oh, maybe not. They're gone now. All right, then. If anyone does want to actually have a conversation, then just let me know and I'll unmute you. All right, here we go. Got through all the yes and no's. Richard said, but will this be, Richard's actually got his hand up. So let's see if I can let Richard talk. Richard, you should be able to unmute yourself. I can't unmute you. You've got to, there we go. We can't hear you though, if you are talking. No. Right.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you now, fine.
No, I was just wondering whether this meant Bitcoin would benefit or whether the Federal Reserve or other nations would introduce their own crypto so that Bitcoin would be left to one side, because Bitcoin isn't a particularly efficient crypto. Transferring money takes many minutes, etc.
Yeah.
I wonder
just like gold, right?
Right.
So the efficiency of, I don't care if anyone can buy a coffee with gold. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if anybody can pay for their, car wash with gold. That's not what's important. What's important about gold is the store of value element. And based on that, Bitcoin is the best crypto out there. So from that perspective, yes, all of these central banks, they're all going to create their own digital currencies. That's what's going to happen. But they will not have the monetary policy of Bitcoin, which is 21 million, controlled inflation, and a release schedule that gets harder and harder for however much attention is being put on it, right? So that is what's valuable about Bitcoin. I don't need it to be efficient, because at the end of the day, right now, we're all on a level 1 system. So if we were all actually trying to operate the current world on a level 1 system, we'd all be as pissed off as we are with Bitcoin when we're trying to transfer the funds. What happens right now is I have pounds, I pay in pounds, and the value, right, we think, okay, I've taken the pounds, now the value is assigned to me, right? Or I have the value. But the value actually gets assigned on a central bank level. So those tier 2 solutions, those tier 2 financial solutions for Bitcoin will come in the sense that, for example, let's just assume as a theoretical example that reserve currency worldwide goes and it's backed by Bitcoin. Well, in that scenario, just like it was with gold, right? Let's just use that as a theoretical example. If I do a lot of trade with the US, and I have a lot of pounds that are backed by Bitcoin, and I do a lot of trade. Well, really, at the end of the day, there only needs to be one transaction of Bitcoin. It doesn't need to be millions and millions of transactions, because the central banks can just do one transaction from the UK central bank to the US central bank. And by the way, it's much more efficient than gold, because I don't need a SWAT team. I don't need the army. I don't need anybody to get involved. I don't need a boat. I don't need planes. I don't need anybody to move the actual gold around. And so from that perspective, Bitcoin is the winner. And by the way, anyone who's very excited about other cryptos, once something gets past $100 billion a market cap, game is over. It's happened with everything. And that's why when people try and compare MySpace to Facebook, look at Facebook came and killed MySpace. MySpace was at $1 billion or $2. It doesn't matter. It was nothing. Once something passes $100 billion, because of the network that's created, i.e. people like me, people like the miners, people like BlackRock, et cetera, it's tough to kill anything like that. So Bitcoin will, in essence, yes, the central banks will create their own currencies, but Bitcoin will, in essence, take the role of gold in the pounds US dollar world, right? It would be the same thing for the cryptocurrency world. And that's the way that all of Wall Street is looking at it, by the way. Does that answer that question, Richard?
Yes, thanks very much.
Yep, no worries. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. Andrew said, nobody knows what those guys are talking about. Well, hopefully I gave you I think you're talking about Larry Fink. So hopefully I gave you an understanding as to what's going on. Andrew said, what are your thoughts on altcoins such as Litecoin and XR? I don't care. I don't care. They're going to be utilities, and all the other coins are going to be really useful utilities, I believe. Just like a little thing called the US dollar, right? The US dollar is a great utility. Doesn't mean it holds your value, because last time I checked, that's what we're all trying to protect ourselves from. So all the other coins can be great. The one thing that I need you guys to focus on is the store of value potential of Bitcoin. Jason said, thoughts on Grayscale, GBTC, thoughts on selling physical metal holdings. Whether you got physical metal holding or that doesn't matter to me. It's the allocation in your portfolio. If you are sitting with more than 20% in gold, and either way, I think that should be all gold, no silver at this point. Although, and I still think silver is going to do well, right? I still think silver is going to do well up to $50 an ounce. But I still think if you start allocating to Bitcoin, then I think you can start taking care of that silver and reducing that even more, and potentially even going to zero, right? And Grayscale, yes, I think it's an efficient way. Yes, there's a premium attached to it, but it's an efficient way until a proper ETF comes along for the average normal person to own Bitcoin without dealing with all the technical side of it. Jeff said, with regard to rebalancing out of GLD and SLV, do you include stocks as well in that thinking? Yes, I think all across the board, I'm talking about precious metals exposure in its entirety. The mining companies and stuff will actually be better off because they have a business attached to it, right? Gary said, well, the gold and silver I hold is currently below my cost basis. Should I consider buying puts as a hedge? Consider taking a small loss? It depends. If you got more than 20% in gold and silver, and you want to allocate to Bitcoin, it's a decision that you've got to make. Personally, what would I do? Depending on the loss, I may even take it at this point. Randall said, can you see options being available for Grayscale? No, but whenever there is an ETF, there will be options on that. And that's, again, there's so many new markets coming into this. So that's why the fragmentation of the attention is just going to get worse and worse. And by the way, gold could still go up in this scenario. Gold could crash, right, in the short term, and then suddenly start climbing as more and more people get into inflation hedge assets. But and David Morgan, I was talking to him about this, and then he sent me an article of someone talking about Bitcoin versus gold. And in that article, the guy said, I think gold could get to $7,000 an ounce in the next 10 years, and Bitcoin could get to $4 million a coin. So gold could still continue to go up, but as Paul Tudor Jones said it the best way possible, the fastest horse in the race is going to be Bitcoin. Marilyn said, concern for the accelerator trades. Well, those are 2023 trades for the Top Gun trades on the Gold and Silver for Life Accelerator. I'm really talking about short-term dips here. And I don't want to see people who have got 80, 90% of their portfolio exposed to metals because they saw it on YouTube to now suddenly go, oh my God, my portfolio is down by 50%. Like that's what I'm trying to protect here. Long term, I think gold goes up, but you've got to, there are faster horses, as Paul Tudor Jones said. Francis said, hi Manesh, 5% of my portfolio is in physical gold. What would you recommend? Sell all, sell a percentage, and into what? As I have 15% of my portfolio in Bitcoin, more BTC. I can't tell you about more BTC because that's something that you've got to be comfortable with. You're already higher than what I say in the Perfect Portfolio. I'm personally higher as well, right? But that's also because of the value increase. So as far as your precious metals goes, it just depends. You've got to find out what you're comfortable with. I think 5%, you're already on the low side, but it depends on what you are personally comfortable with and how much you've got, if you've got any in GLD or whether that's because you said your physical portfolio. So I don't know whether all of it is accounted for there or not. Hillary said, are you thinking of changing the Perfect Portfolio allocation in response to some of this? I'm thinking about it, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think the Perfect Portfolio allocation is fine. I wouldn't be mad if somebody said, hey, I'm going to dip my gold down to 15% and put another 5% into Bitcoin, for example. That wouldn't upset me in any way. But I don't think it's time yet just to really do that. So yeah. Derek, you're asking an accelerator, SPFL accelerator question. You need to forward that to Deep, please. But said, what symbols can I purchase Bitcoin in the USA? I've only been able to buy $1,000 per day through Coinbase. So if you just go and buy GBTC, this is a Bitcoin trust. And it's basically, there's a premium attached to it on the Bitcoin price, but basically 1,000 shares of this equals 1 Bitcoin. So right now it's trading at $23,000. So there is a premium attached to it, but that premium will disappear as the price starts to go up until a proper ETF comes out. And by the way, when a proper ETF comes out, this thing is going to go nuts because it's the same thing that happened with gold when GLD came out. Chris said, thanks, Manesh. How does everything you've said today might affect what percentage of your portfolio should be in, say, VOO as opposed to gold and Bitcoin? It doesn't really. Like I've always been saying, I think, well, not always, but for the last few months, I think Stock Profits for Life is going to be the #1 performer. I think this threat pushes Gold and Silver for Life from #2 to #3 in the portfolio. So, I know it sounds self-serving to say this, but if you are not on Stock Profits for Life, now is a better chance and a better moment than any to seriously consider it. Whether you want to join just the blueprint or whether you want to join the accelerator as well, it doesn't matter. Now is the time because this is a real threat to the gold price. And if you've got 90% of your assets in gold because Mike Maloney told you so, Mike Maloney is about to cost you a lot of money. John said, in addition to BTC purchases, do you agree with investments into Riot and Hive, HVBTF? I have a little bit of exposure to Hive, nothing serious. Peter said, but it's speculative. Bitcoin is the one. Bitcoin is the one. Beyond that, you can speculate with whatever else you want to speculate in. Peter, I've already answered that regarding the Top Gun trades on gold and silver. John, I already just spoke about GBTC. Jeff said, so would you say sell all silver? This is the crazy thing because I would and I have, just when I told you guys, right? The problem is that silver will still make money. It will still, I think, potentially go up to $50. Is it going to breach $100 an ounce? I doubt it. The only way I would be wrong and for silver to breach $100 an ounce is if suddenly $1 trillion of silver demand comes in the next 3 weeks, right? Because then the bottleneck is too small. But if there's a consistent increase in silver demand, the supply of silver will increase based on the Institute of Silver data. So yeah, I have sold all of my silver. I don't own any silver. Derek said, if a central bank digital currency comes out, which could be a few years away, what do you think that will do to BTC? It's the same thing. Just like people buy gold to hedge against US dollars and British pounds, people will buy Bitcoin to hedge against the modern monetary theory that will be behind central bank digital currencies. All right, Peter Sinclair, right? You've just raised your hand, so I'm assuming you want to talk. Let's see. All right, you need to unmute yourself, Peter.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I meant to type in the question, but here's my quick question.
Your sound is really low for some reason.
Here's my quick question.
There we go.
What is your current, if you think silver could go to 50, despite the fact selling all of your silver assets, what price are you currently looking at for gold?
Just repeat the last bit for me.
What price are you looking at for gold?
Okay. All right. Okay, cool. So your microphone for some reason is really low, but I got that question. What I'm going to do is, if I get anything wrong, please just type it in, and we'll go from there. Okay. Right. So as far as silver goes, I think, like I said, I think it could get to $50 an ounce. As far as gold goes, I think that gold could potentially breach the $3,500 to $4,000 an ounce. I don't know when, right? Certainly, I thought it could breach I thought it could reach 3,000 by next year. That's now in doubt. That's now in doubt. But I think gold will go up. It's just, do you want to be sitting there on a 10-year investment while it continues to go up with the fragmentation of attention? Or would you rather get into something that might be the fastest horse in the race, as Paul Tudor Jones says, and make money now? I hope that answers the question. If I missed anything, you for some reason, when you watch the replay, you'll hear what was going on, but the volume on your microphone was really, really low. Fadila said, I'm surprised that the gold BTC correlation lasted until October, considering BTC's meteoric rise in the past 5 years. My BTC allocation is about 30% of my portfolio, not because I've allocated that much, but because of the huge growth compared to real estate and the metals. Yeah, that's fine. The reason why it lasted is because it was September, October, which is when Wall Street started pumping this. People don't understand how much power these guys have, right? That's why I say I'm not a contrarian. I just follow the money. And the money right now is flowing into Bitcoin. Zafar said, if the argument for Bitcoin is so compelling, why hold 20% in gold? You've just answered my question. That's up to you, right? That's totally up to you. You've got to answer that question for yourself. As far as the perfect portfolio goes, it's a portfolio strategy, not a particular asset class, go all in on one thing strategy. Andrew said, thanks, Manesh. You're welcome. Bev said, would it be advised we wait to sell gold and related stocks until after tax selling and into that's totally up to you. It depends on your tax setup. Brian said, do we reduce our gold to 10%? Again, that's totally up to you. It's what you're comfortable with. If you wanted, like I said, if you wanted to reduce your gold from 20% to 10% and add an extra 10 to Bitcoin, I wouldn't be happy with that. I'm sorry, I wouldn't be mad at that. Charles said, any good websites or people to follow in the Bitcoin world? The only book you need to read in the Bitcoin space is called The Bitcoin Standard. That book has been, the CEO of MicroStrategy, the Mexican billionaire that just put a bunch of money into Bitcoin. All of these banks, everyone is basing their research as a foundation from that book. So just read that book, and that's all you need to really understand. Aaron said, I have separate brokerage account for Perfect Portfolio, but I also have a 401k account with Fidelity that I try to manage as well. Unfortunately, GBTC is considered too risky. and I can't purchase it. What's the next best thing to get exposure to Bitcoin? Perhaps buy MicroStrategy. Potentially, but again, you've got the added risk of it being an individual, a standalone tech company as well. So you've got to be careful on that too for a long-term holding. It's interesting that Fidelity think GBTC is too risky, considering they're developing their own crypto world. That's very fascinating. Robert said, "Where would you send us for the best education on modern monetary theory? Thank you." Well, I don't know. You can find information everywhere. Just start off on YouTube, start off on Google, and start Googling around what it is. But in summary, it is not a debt-based system anymore, and it's basically print as much money as you can and make people happy. It's like Janet Yellen, coming out and saying, because she's been selected as Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary, and she said she's going to try and fix racial inequality, social justice, and all kinds of other things through the Treasury. I don't know. I'm not convinced, but apparently it's fixable through just printing money. I didn't know that was actually possible. So we'll see. But that's basically the policy: print as much money as possible. Okay. Bart said, message from Merrill. When I tried to purchase GBTC, trading of the security is generally not permitted on the Merrill platform. This order for a low price security for certain securities has been blocked due to specific restrictions. Yeah, basically, they're shitting themselves. So get a Charles Schwab account, and you should be able to buy GBTC with that without any issues. Right. Any last questions? I think this is so important for people to pay attention to. I think that if you are not paying attention to this, then it is going to cost you money. And that's why, it's not surprising to me why we've had so many people jump over from Gold and Silver Life. Gold and Silver Life is the biggest program we have, right? Because it's been running the longest. But it's not surprising to me why we've had so many people jump over to SPFL in the tail end of this year, and particularly the accelerator with the offer that we got running right now until the end of the year. So, any last questions? But this is very, very, very important because, again, like I said, there are so many people that are. There's so many people that are sold on the dream of gold and precious metals because of something they've seen on YouTube, and they've put 99% of their wealth because they think the US dollar is going to collapse tomorrow. And I was that person in 2009 as well, right? You've got to change with the times. You've got to adapt to what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting potentially on a dud investment for 5 or 6 years. So this is very important. And unfortunately, it's sad because, I am a gold person, but this is what the fund flows are saying. David said, is Coinbase the best way to buy Bitcoin? If you actually want to buy the Bitcoin, you got Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, whatever. You can use any exchange you want. Suzanne said, what is your opinion on Bitcoin Tracker One? I don't really have an opinion on it in any way. Charles said, when will Apple and others transfer some cash to BTC? That's the other question. You got $192 billion in cash. What happens when Apple says, hey, let's put 19.2 billion or 10% into Bitcoin? Because after looking at what happened to MicroStrategy, they might decide to do that. They might be doing that right now. We don't know about it, right? So this is a very, very important moment for all highly invested gold investors. That's why I wanted to get on here and do this for you guys. It's very important to pay attention. And hey, while we're ending, I thought Jason's raised his hand. So let's see. All right, Jason, you should be able to unmute yourself. Hey, look at that.
Hey, Manesh.
Hey.
Hey, greetings from the U.S. Hey, so I was one of those that tried to convince you years ago to get in on Bitcoin and blockchain technology. Now, are you holding this stuff in a cold storage wallet as well? Are you just keeping it on exchanges? What is your thoughts on that? Because I have a bunch in cold storage, I have a bunch in exchanges. And then my second question too is, are you also looking at things like Ethereum, which is essentially a smaller version? I mean, a totally different version of Bitcoin, but those are my two questions for you.
Yeah, no, firstly, I was an idiot for not listening and paying attention a few years ago. I wish I had, trust me. My answer to that is, the first question is, majority of my holdings are in GBTC and via the stock market.
Okay.
I do have some in Coinbase. I have some in Gemini. I have some in cold storage just to see how that sort of plays around. I have some everywhere because I've got to experiment with everything. But for me, mainly, majority of my holdings are in GBTC.
And that's why I asked you earlier about that, because I don't have any GBTC. I have everything is either cold storage or I use Binance, and
Yeah.
I'm not
It
a
just
fan
depends
of.
what you're comfortable with, right? It
Yeah.
just depends. And for me, what's more important is the financial trade rather than the revolutionary world-changing elements of Bitcoin and tearing down governments. I don't think that's going to happen. I think
No.
that's smoking the best marijuana you can find. If you think that the government's going to, walk away from its control over money, I don't think that's going to happen. So
No, they're not. They're gonna.
yeah. So from a trade perspective, I think GBTC is absolutely fine. As far as Ethereum goes, no, I don't care about any of that.
I think you'll find that that's actually not a bad. I mean, I don't know. You buy something at $40 and it's now 600. That's something worth caring about.
It's great, but I'm looking at the store of value argument.
Oh yeah, no, I completely understand. I trade altcoins like I would a stock. I don't hold those as a store of value. I've held Bitcoin as a store of value for a long time.
Yeah.
I trade those other ones as a Litecoin is a great example. I bought that at 35 back in the spring. It's 83 today.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a hard time showing me some stuff on that. I mean, it's easy. Those are easily traded. But yes, Bitcoin is a store of value. And I was curious where you were storing it. And I guess I'll take a better look at the fund.
Yeah, check it out.
At Grayscale. I've been looking at Grayscale. I've been looking at both their Bitcoin and their Ethereum. Hive, though, I'm not familiar with Hive.
Yeah, it's the symbol is HVBTF on the US markets.
Okay. Well, that's a lot cheaper. Yeah, that's 95 cents.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your time today.
No worries. All right. So yeah, at the end of the day, you've got to do what you think is right. But I wanted to get this information into your hands because obviously, I'm one of the people that needed it in my hands a few years ago. But I wasn't paying attention to the people around me. And that a large portion of that is because the arguments then were Bitcoin is going to be used as a currency. I don't care if it's used as a currency or not. If the big money wants to use it as a store of value, that's what's important. Right. Let's see. There's an anonymous attendee, and the question is, I have physical silver I've been sitting on, waiting, so not to take a loss, 40% of my portfolio. Would you advise that I shift to Bitcoin now or wait until silver goes up more? Personally, I would start moving now, but I really can't answer that question for you because I think Bitcoin's going to move a lot faster than silver's going to come up, and that's if silver comes up with this fragmentation that started happening. I can't really answer questions because I can't give advice. So I'm sharing the information I can. You've got to read between the lines to a certain degree because I legally cannot give advice. But I think it's time. If you are serious about growing wealth in the interim period, that's why I started talking about silver the moment that I started understanding it myself from a stock to flow perspective. I started closing positions, and I told you guys I was doing the same. And that's when I think that it still could go up to $50 an ounce. I'm still closing out of it, right? Because I think I've made more money on Bitcoin, for example, than the percentage gain on silver would be if it went up to $50 an ounce. So yeah, and at the end of the day, guys, you need to make your decision, but I do not want to be the one that is here and you're looking at going, hey, you didn't tell me what you thought. So that's why I wanted to share this information with you now that it's coming out and Wall Street is getting crazier and crazier on it. Now, saying that, while I have got you guys here, we've just hit the hour mark. While I've got you guys here, I just want to tell you guys about the Stock Profits for Life Accelerator. We've got a great offer running on it. I don't know whether you're considering it or not, but if you are, then if you join by December 14th, not only do you get the blueprint programs you're missing, so if you're on one blueprint program, you get the other two that you're missing for free, which is $7,000. Not only will you get that, but next year, the price of Accelerator is going up to $10,000 per year, not $9,000. So you'll save $1,000 a year. You'll be locked in for however long you're on it. And on top of that, you actually won't miss out on the profits that have been generated this year, because next year I think is going to be even crazier, especially with the Bitcoin stuff, because we're now doing Top Gun trades on companies that have Bitcoin exposure. So Bitcoin's also coming to the Stock Profits for Life Accelerator in a bigger and bigger way. And of course, we've got the coronavirus recovery still to go as well. So if you are interested in that, there is literally no better time than right now before December 14th to get involved. And how you do that is by emailing Alex at perfectportfoliollc.com, and she will set up an interview with myself and yourself, and we'll find out whether it's right for you or not. But if you are considering it, you have been considering it, now is the best time to do so. Peter, it's Hive. The US symbol is HVBTF. HVBTF. Right, and that's a miner, by the way, right? It's like getting involved in the gold and silver mining stocks. It also mines all the other cryptocurrencies. So I guess you've got exposure via that if you want to get into the, the altcoins and things like that as well. But the long-term position, I think, should be in Bitcoin. Right. On that note, guys, listen, at the end of the day, I know some of you guys are going, hey, Minesh, but you're a gold guy. Why are you saying this? It's because my job is not to be a gold guy. I am not a gold clown. My job is to make money, and my job is to hopefully make you guys money too. So my job is to be here and share the latest information that I can so that you can make the appropriate decision for yourself. Again, like I said, no one in the gold space is talking about this yet. And that's because they're all terrified about what's going to happen to their businesses if all the attention is sucked out of the precious metal space. And I think you will find, I'm never going to take credit for it, but I think you will find some prominent gold and silver people start talking about cryptocurrencies very soon. So I think, this conversation, I haven't just had it with you guys. I've had private conversations with all of my gold friends as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I think this is a real threat, and I think it's something you need to pay attention to. And if you are thinking about making any real money, I think it may be a time to start reducing your gold position if it's above 20%. And if you are thinking about making money next year, then hey, what are you waiting for? You've seen all the testimonials on the SPFL Accelerator. Come and join, come and join. Take that opportunity and come and join. If you've got more than $50,000, it is right for you. And you can handle a little bit more risk too. Right, guys, on that note, this replay will be inside of the Telegram group. So yeah, we'll post it in there probably in the next 24 hours. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Apologies if it was inconvenient. Apologies for the movement of times. But hopefully this information has been valuable, and I will speak to you guys very, very soon. Take care, and ciao.